Hi, everybody. I've been the CEO of WorldTree for 6 months. Just overjoyed to be here, happy to be here. I joke with people that, but it's really not a joke in a way, that when people have asked me what's my greatest talent is I tell them I pick really good partners. And I say that jokingly, but it's really, I think, true. I've just really proud and pleased to partner with the founder, Wendy Burton at WorldTree, and Kathy Key, one of the other key persons who's been here for a while. And Kathy and I are going to tag team back and forth. I spent most of my career in the private sector as a CEO. My last company was as the CEO of a reference pathology laboratory. So, things like skin biopsies and things like that. It was another situation where I chose a great partner, a brilliant doctor by the name of David Bullock. But we had a successful exit and sold that company a dozen years ago since that time. And then really a career choice, chose to move into government, seeing that that was a place I could make a difference and make an impact. Was the CEO of Salt Lake County government for 7 years with about an $800 million budget, and then the city manager of 3 cities in California up until recently. 2 of those cities with significant corruption issues before I took over. But one of the things that led me to leaving government and coming back to the private sector was I saw that government wasn't getting the job done when it came to climate change. And I didn't have anyone to make wrong or any finger to point. I just noticed that we weren't stepping up to the ball, and no matter how much I would try and persuade certain people or things, and it just wasn't enough. And as I examined the issue more and more, I saw that the leaders in addressing climate change were in the private sector. And I saw a new possibility, really, of a new kind of capitalism that could be the key to addressing and solving climate change for all of us, and that was the private sector. The interesting aspect of that also, there's more and more data coming out that shows that companies with high levels of purpose outperform the market by 5 to 7% a year. Reasons why I moved and made this jump. And so since that time, you've seen, this is just a brief list of a few companies making big commitments into a carbon neutral or a carbon negative future. Nike's moved to zero to be carbon neutral by 2030, Microsoft carbon negative by 2030, and actually drawing down all of their carbon from the day they first founded by 2050. So it's pretty amazing stuff when you look at what's happening in the private sector and the difference that the private sector can make and is making. And I'd really assert they are the leader throughout the world when it comes to really making an impact and leading us to where we want to go. That brings me to, finally, this is a picture of Wendy Burton, our founder. I love her. I love her to death. When we met and when I met the WorldTree team, we fell in love, and it was a match made in heaven. She's still our visionary. We, follow her lead, her amazing stand over the 20 years to get from where she started to where we are now is just amazing. And she's really, well before its time, but certainly with WorldTree, created this company marrying together people, prosperity, and purpose. And it was really that commitment that has me here. We'd be remiss to step into this without addressing the world that we're in right now, right? Could anyone 6 months ago have predicted the world that we're in right now? I don't know anybody who could have. Literally, our entire lives and societies and economies have been upended and upset. And yet, Albert Einstein once said, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. And so it's not that, oh, look on the bright side, it's that let's look for what the opportunity here is now. Do we want to emerge into a world or back into a world that was the same one that we left? And I think all of us could say, no, we don't. We want to create something new. And so WorldTree is very much about the possibility of what can be created right now and emerging into a new world. This is, you know, the daughters of one of our farmers in Florida. And we loved the picture. We asked them if we actually needed to pay for the rights to use the picture that they took of their daughters. This is on their Paulownia tree farm, because it was so touching for us, because it truly represents the better world that can be created with the right brand of capitalism for communities, for families, for the planet, for investors. And it's really what WorldTree is all about, is building that brighter, bolder future for all of us to step into. So with that, I want to really turn the next little piece over to Kathy, and she was the brainchild behind the EcoTree program several years ago, and she's going to run through the basics for people who don't really know about it. It's unique in that it's a program that pairs up smaller investors, small farmers, and provides a big bang to the planet at the same time. So Kathy.
Thanks, Doug. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Kathy Key. I am the President and Chief Operations Officer here at WorldTree. And I'm going to be sharing with you an overview of the EcoTree program. But before I do that, I'd just like to give you a little sense of why we created the program in the first place. So when I joined WorldTree 5 years ago, we're a forestry company, and we didn't have the EcoTree program at all at that point. And inside of forestry and investing, normally what you see is large-scale institutional investors like pension funds, and all of the timber investing opportunities are really tailored for those kinds of organizations. And at WorldTree, when we looked at what was possible with Paulownia, which is the tree I'm going to be sharing with you, what we saw is that we wanted it to be available as an investment, not just for people who are already super rich, but available for everyone. So what you're going to get a sense of inside of the next piece is how WorldTree works with family farmers and individual regular investors like you and me, so that everyone can participate. So we work with a very particular tree called Paulownia. It's the fastest growing tree in the world, reaches maturity in 10 years. In the center picture there, you can see Wendy holding the leaf of a 6-month-old tree from Tennessee. And as you can see, this tree has a big set of lungs on it. Those leaves of the tree are enormous. And this slide really is our business model in a nutshell. And what we do is we take these little guys, these little $3 plants, and over the course of 10 years, turn them into $800 of lumber. And you don't have to take our word for it. You can look this up in the Guinness Book of World Records. Paulownia is officially amazing, fastest growing tree in the world. Doug is going to be sharing a lot about the lumber and its benefits and the markets. Just a few things for you to know. This variety that we use is non-invasive. It's Mother Nature created, and it's Mother Nature's solution, one of her solutions to climate change. It absorbs a tremendous amount of carbon. Our EcoTree program is a partnership between WorldTree, our farmers, and our investors. So WorldTree has decades of experience with Paulownia. We have premium varieties of Paulownia that we know are good for timber production. And we provide these trees to our farmers like Herbert here. They provide the land, the maintenance, the care of the trees over the 10 years. And this whole program is fueled by our investors. And every $3,000 invested into the program allows us to plant 1 acre of trees. To date, we've planted about 2,600 acres in 5 countries. We have a very deliberate policy of diversification of farms because we are dealing with Mother Nature and we're dealing with a crop. So we want to diversify risk by planting in many locations. Currently, we have over 150 farmers in the program, spread across the United States, Canada, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and Mexico. And within the US, we're diversified into these different, the green and the yellow states you can see on the map here. This is one of our farmers in Alabama, Eugene. This picture was taken a year ago, and he is standing there next to a 2-year-old tree. And when I met Eugene, he said, there's only 2 things you can grow here in Alabama. It's rocks and trees. So I figure we're gonna give your trees a go. Here we are in Costa Rica, and the tree that you're looking at in the picture is just 1 year old. Grows beautifully. This picture is interesting because it gives you a bigger picture of what a Latin American farm looks like, where they tend to intercrop. Here, the trees are intercropped with coffee. The trees also will intercrop with plantains and corn and lots of other different interesting companion plants. And the trees very quickly, within 1 year, are providing much needed shade to the companions in these hotter areas. This is another area we grow. You can see Doug here on the right. This is in Guatemala, and here the trees are being intercropped with corn. The trees that you're looking at were planted about 4.5 months before the photographs were taken. It's Doug on the right. On the left is Elliot Winter, who leads our farmer success team. And this is the joke I like to tell, you can either choose for yourself if Elliot is a very, very small man, or those are giant trees in Guatemala. We, of course, are working hand in hand with our farmers. We take our auditing and our monitoring of the farms very seriously so that we can monitor the investment, but also we can put in correction measures with our farmers and really make sure they're getting the best results. The objective here is to grow the trees into beautiful, beautiful girls like this one, this gigantic tree you see on the screen here. This is actually a very special tree. There's a secret society of Paulownia lovers, and one of the members is former President Jimmy Carter. This is one of his trees that we had the great privilege and opportunity to harvest his trees last winter. 1 acre of trees will generate on a well-managed plantation approximately 30,000 board feet of lumber. This bit of video was actually taken on President Carter's farm, which, you know, he's well known as the president who put solar panels on the White House, and these are the solar panels on his farm. And then this picture's kind of cool. So I know, you know, if you're a tree hugger like me, you're like, oh, there's always a little bit of heartbreak when you see a tree cut down. But then when you look at this slide, you see this is part of the cycle of life for Paulownia. So Paulownia regenerates from its roots and from the stump after harvest. So you see on the left, the first picture, then on President Carter's farm, you can see the picture in the middle. This is what the tree stumps look like just a few weeks after harvest. And then on the right, you see a couple of months after harvest, those trees are already generating lots of leaves, lots of life, lots of vitality. And this is what makes this a perfect eco timber, is because it will provide timber for generations to come. So we harvest the trees, we then sell the wood, and the lumber is sold in the current market for between $3 and $14 a board foot. We don't know in the future what the profits will be, but any profits we do make are shared. This is a true partnership. So our farmers, like Herbert, receive 50%, World Tree 25%, and our investors 25%. There are 3 success factors here: survival of the trees, the yield, and the quality, the price that we get for the lumber. So I'm going to give you a quick example. Doug is going to be doing the deep dive into the lumber and the markets and the pricing, but I want to give you from the investment side an example of how this can look. So let's imagine that 50% of our trees survive. We generate 30,000 board feet on average, and we sell at an average of $7.50 a board foot. This is an example of how you could calculate the potential profit. This is for illustration purposes so that you get an idea of how this works. So first thing we're interested in here is the volume, like how much wood are we producing? And you calculate your volume by taking that yield, 30,000 board feet, and multiplying it by the survival. So that would give us an average of 15,000 board feet. If you take that volume and multiply it by that revenue, and you take away the harvest costs, which are about $2 a board foot less in Latin America, then you're going to get your profit. So in our example, that would generate $82,500 profit from 1 acre. If you want to know the investor amount of that, remember it's 25%. So 25% of that gives us about $20,000 from that $3,000 investment. Tree survival obviously has a big impact on potential returns. So this shows potential investor returns from 1 acre based on tree survival, assuming again that kind of the average selling price of $7.50 a board foot. And we're targeting 75% survival, which would give us returns in around about $35,000. But even if we only did 10% survival in this scenario, you get about $4,500 back from your $3,000 investment. If we take another scenario, like let's say it's 50% survival, but we only sell for $4 a board foot, you'd get $7,500 back on your 1 acre investment. That gives you an idea. And again, you know, there's many factors here, and that all of the risks and returns are described in our offering documents. All right, so that's my nutshell overview. Back to you, Doug, for the market.
Great, thank you, Kathy. So we've gotten, I know, a number of questions, certainly from people on this webinar, but also some customers recently regarding the market for Paulownia, how this end of the equation works. We're going to dive into this more in depth. A couple things that I'd say is there is a robust and growing market in Asia. There has been for many, many decades. It's now being used for many products, paper and fabrics and all sorts of other things. In addition to just the wood, it's grown in a variety of different types of ways. It's also grown in Europe, and there's a growing market in Europe. In North America, it's virtually the market is, there's no market whatsoever. If there is, it's just a small, little bit here, a little bit there. Most of the Paulownia that's used in North America is imported from Asia or Europe, primarily Asia. And so really one of the goals of World Tree is to build the North American market. We're the largest grower of Paulownia in North and Central America right now. We plan to keep it that way. And this is what you see on the screen in front of you are the priority markets for us near term and the size of those markets and the other wood that's being used in those for those uses right now. So you see it's well over $130 billion market that is there for us to compete in. Now, it's funny, I have a brother in the investment banking world that many years ago I said to him, you know, Brad, if we just got 5% of the market, and he stopped me and he said, stop. If I had $1 for everybody who said that to me, I'd be rich. And so we at WorldTree don't make that mistake to just say, look how big the market is, and oh, we'll just get a certain percentage of it. Part of this talk today is to really dive into what the plan is, what the process is, what the competitive advantages are, and what the market looks like, and why we think there's such a great opportunity here. So once we move beyond this target market, I want to give just a brief little case study. That's bamboo. Everyone knows about it. It's not a tree, although it competes with wood, and many people think it's a tree. It's actually in the grass family. It's a fiber. It too has environmental benefits to growing. It consumes about 35% more CO2 than many commercially grown trees. It's easy to harvest. It grows very quickly. It's sustainable. It would be classified invasive in many ways because it does spread. I have a neighbor that grows bamboo on their side that frequently ends up on our side of the fence, and so that's invasive. Now, the key thing is the last bullet point. There's a substantial processing investment and cost, not just in money, but in environmental degradation in bamboo. And it's a high chemical load, a high environmental load, because they actually pull these out in small strips, and then they have to press them together with chemicals and glues and processing to turn them into the things we see as consumers, whether it be flooring or cabinets or things like that. However, when you look at how bamboo is growing over the years, this is, in 1980, the market for bamboo was virtually zero, the global market. Last year, it was almost 70 billion. By 2027, it's projected to be 98 billion. That's amazing that bamboo did that. And the thing is, when you talk to architects, designers, things like that, what they'll tell you is bamboo is not better for their cabinets than maple, oak, alder, or any of the other things. This is the key reason why bamboo has grown from zero to $100 billion market in a few years. The increasing use of sustainable building and construction resources. My wife is a designer of high-end homes, and she'll tell you that designers never spec bamboo in their home unless it's something the customer wants because it's more environmentally friendly. I mean, despite the environmental impact of the processing, yes, it's better doing a bamboo floor than pulling Brazilian cherry out of the Amazon for your wood floor. Yes, that's definitely better, but it's not nearly what it needs to be to have a low environmental load. So other significant market facts that I'd say that impact us is that the worldwide demand for wood is projected to triple by 2050. That's a whole variety of reasons. I mean, and many people know or have seen 12-story buildings now are being built out of wood because we've realized that the carbon footprint is 30% less than concrete and steel, and a whole host of other reasons why wood is in such big demand. I also want to highlight cedar. There's a cedar shortage in the world right now, certainly North America. It's dying off in British Columbia, the Western US, Alaska, all because of climate change and related issues. Cedar cannot withstand 12-week droughts, much less 6-month droughts or year-long droughts, and the added heat that goes with it. So actually, many scientists say Western red cedar is expected to become virtually extinct in our lifetime, which is unbelievable, but that's what the expectation is. The wholesale cost of Western red cedar, as a result, has increased almost 30% in just the last 2 years. And over 6 billion of cedar was imported into the US from Canada in 2018 because the cedar in California and the Northwest has led the die-off. British Columbia is following, but nevertheless, that's where they've been so far. So now let's move from here into the uses of Paulownia now. And we're just gonna drive through some of the pictures, but you see beautiful furniture can be made out of Paulownia. It's very strong, lightweight, it doesn't warp, it doesn't expand and contract with humidity and things like that. It takes a stain well. So the next picture, this and the next picture is Earth's Up paddle boards, which is a high-end paddle board. They use Paulownia exclusively on the outside for a variety of reasons. You can see they kind of call it out on the end there: fast-growing, lightweight, warp-resistant, strong, and it's renewable. And it's a growing use in that market, surfboards and paddle boards and things like that. A couple other pictures. So the next one is Relish guitars. So this is actually a guitar made from wood, Paulownia wood, from President Jimmy Carter's farm. And Relish Guitars, a Swiss guitar maker, they actually said to us, a quote, they consider this to be one of the most beautiful guitars they've ever made, some of the best wood they've ever worked with. They'd never worked with it before. They'd like to consider it again if there's a regular supply. Okay, but there'll be more publicity about some other guitars made from Jimmy Carter's collection and a legacy guitar collection that will be out and in some museums, hopefully in the near future. Another huge market for us is veneers. Paulownia is unique that compared to many hardwoods, it applies itself to veneers much better than many hardwoods because you're able to slice it at a 1/16 of an inch in entire rolls. You can do wallpapers out of Paulownia veneers. And so while it's it takes work to move into this market, it is definitely a huge market for us for the long-term future. Valuable hardwoods, Paulownia in this market will sell for $30 a board foot or more because, again, who you're selling it to is then able to slice this over and over and over and get many applications. So we can go through some of these and you can see it's also used here for decorative and acoustic panels for walls, these are things like what my wife would spec in the homes that she designs. In the next picture, the same thing you see, that's Paulownia panels on the walls. That is really, really a beautiful wood to be used for. That's a growing use. When you talk to architects about who's driving the use of renewable wood in construction, they'll raise their hand and say, we are. Architects are driving it, and so they want the ability to spec renewable products like that. This is an award-winning home in Japan where the designer and builder used Paulownia for virtually everything in the wood, certainly all the finished products, and you see how beautiful it is for what it is. It's really, really amazing. So, having been through all that, well, it's not easy to create a new market for a new product. We have several natural advantages. We have really important natural advantages. We're known as the aluminum of lumber. Paulownia's kind of been given that nickname. It's light, yet strong, it's termite resistant, it's water and rot resistant, it's renewable, it's beautiful and stainable, it doesn't warp, I'll add in. You know, one thing I'll say about this, I grew up, one of the ways I worked my way through college was as working construction. And I still remember sorting out the warped lumber. And it wasn't just pine studs, it was everything. It was oak flooring, it was oak ceiling, it was pine studs, it was, you know, sorting out, okay, that's warped, we're gonna return that, too warped. If you go to our warehouses where we have our Paulownia lumber stored right now, Plains, Georgia, and Columbia, South Carolina, you will not find a single warped board in all of those stacks. It's amazing that once you dry it, it's done. It's there and it no longer absorbs the humidity that can cause that to warp. So let's look at pricing when we look at other competitors in the market. So these we've identified, you know, some of the immediate market priorities. You can see what those are. You can look at common lumber used, and then these are the price points that you'll see for that lumber for those uses. And granted, it's a very, very big spread because, as I'll explain a little bit more, there's lots of factors that go into how lumber is priced. So we usually have 4 grades of lumber. Number 1 prime, number 1, number 2, number 3. And other lumbers will have usually 2 or 3 grades as well, maybe 4. For example, the number 1 prime is what would be used for veneers. It's the absolute top quality, the very best, and we'd be competing against other number 1 or number 1 prime woods in that area. That means no knots. Actually, so I'll back up. There are several factors that go into that valuation. The amount of knots or the absence of knots in the wood, the width, the length, and the thickness. So our goal when we work with farmers is to not to just grow the most trees. We want to maximize the trees we can grow, the width that we can grow. The wider the board, the more valuable it is, the height that it is, and then the minimize the knots in that. And they do that by care and pruning. When you do that, you produce really high grade, high quality, very expensive lumber that's very valuable on the market. So when you look at these variation in prices, so for cabinet and vanity, for example, that $3, if you look at the top, oak maple, that's probably going to be number 3 grade, meaning lots of knots. It may be that it's paint grade or things like that, that it's not going to be the highest quality that you'll get when you're making it for stain grade and you want something that's clear and so on. But so this is just an example of, you see again, these markets are $130 billion. These are the things that we will really be competing in and going after, and these are the price points that we're at. Right now, we see, actually go back to that once more, Kathy. Right now, you'll see that we have people that call us for cabinet and vanity use, paddle boards, surfboards, guitars. We've got 15 or 16 custom luthiers right now doing custom guitars. 80% of the blinds in the world, the horizontal blinds in the world right now are made out of Paulownia because they're very straight and stable and light to be able to raise up and down. Sauna skis. Now the secondary market, that's key, that's lots of cedar. And while this starts to bring a lower price point to us. It also doesn't require a grade 1 lumber. It's grade 2 or grade 3. And it's quite likely anything that you see cedar used for outside, Paulownia is as good or better. Fencing, decking, outdoor furniture, especially, Adirondack chairs, all of those things. And it's a huge market. And then wood veneers is something that we're definitely going to build those relationships and move into that and get into that, especially the best place for our #1 prime and #1 wood, our grade 1 wood, is to be able to get it into those markets. And that's dashboards on Teslas, wallpaper, you know, all sorts of things that you can imagine veneers could be used for. Now, I also emphasize, are these the only uses? No. I mean, we've had people tell us they want to start to make all the speaker boxes out of Paulownia because it's lighter and they don't have to haul around those big, heavy speaker boxes. Well, that's fine. It's probably just not the key thing on our radar right now. Okay, so all of this is great, and yet when it's new, it requires something. It requires manufacturers to change processes, blades, stains, finishing. That's the big challenge. So for someone to go from building their guitar front from rosewood to Paulownia, it's just not an easy, great, I'm gonna order Paulownia now. They have to change their process. To change that process, what do they need? They need a consistent supply. And that's the one thing that we don't have right now. What we're doing right now, and I think one of the questions that someone has already sent in that I noticed before I jumped into this is, how are we getting supply out there right now? Well, we're actively scouting, purchasing, harvesting, and milling independent Paulownia farms. Again, President Carter's an example. He's such a visionary, but about 15, 18 years ago, he took acreage on his peanut farm and planted Paulownia because he knew it was such a great tree for the environment. But then they came to maturity and he didn't know what to do with them. And so Enner, Wendy Burton, and World Tree got in touch with him. We signed a contract to harvest and mill and then sell his lumber. And we're doing that with him and with others. However, it's just not big enough. Again, you know, we're talking maybe 200,000 to 500,000 board feet per year of smaller farms like that. We could sign a contract with a large specialty wood retailer right now that has 50 locations in Canada and the US for 1 million board feet a year. If we could promise the 1 million board feet a year. But given that we can't, okay, he'll buy a smaller chunk, but it's a lower price because, see, as a retailer, he wants to start to stock that and educate his customers about how great that wood is as an exotic wood. We have major guitar companies who would love to sign a 5-year contract right now for regular annual supply of Paulownia, and it's not there. It's not enough for what they need and what we have. Our real volume starts in 2025 when we start to harvest our first farms. And until then, we're out there purchasing, harvesting, milling, selling independent farms to learn, to build relationships, to continue to start to build the market. But the single biggest issue right now is not a consistent supply. So that's where our EcoTree program comes in. The planting from this year will more than double the acres we have planted in North and Central America. We also have several large projects on the drawing books that we're in collaboration with right now with larger institutional investors. And really the phrase I think we like to use is and this is the new kind of capitalism I started out talking about, we can monetize the healing of the planet. We monetize the degradation of it. right, with everything that's happened with capitalism and the industrial age, certainly, well, we think we can monetize the healing of it. And I think companies like Microsoft and Nike and Google and others are showing that that's possible. And we believe WorldTree is one of those new kind of companies that can show how that's possible. That this is the unique combination of people, prosperity, and planet, that it's a win-win-win all the way across the board. So again, this is what I alluded to before. Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, in January wrote all of his, their investors, sustainability and climate integrated portfolios provide better risk-adjusted returns. That's just recognizing reality in today's world. The other thing that we've been told from a large international bank that we're partnering with on a large project in South America right now, it's in the design stage, is that we're the only, I mean, one of the reasons they reached out to us is we're the only land-based carbon sequestration investment that they have, that they can see. Their corporate customers were saying to them, don't you have anything for us other than renewable energy? We love renewable energy, but boy, that's all you're bringing to us. And so one of the things they love about WorldTree in this particular investment is the fact that it's truly, it's nature's best version of sequestering carbon, and it's an investment, not just a donation. So a few of the last things I'd say is that we've completed the initial verification studies of our carbon drawdown in our trees. The initial verification showed an acre of our trees draws down 36 to 90 metric tons of carbon per year per acre. That's anywhere from 4 to 10 times what a normal sort of pine, spruce, plantation would do per acre. Now, the key is, and this is why verifying carbon is so difficult and unique, and we hire scientists to do it, it varies all over. It depends on what kind of genus type did you use on the tree? How close are the trees planted? Where are they planted? What's the altitude? How fast are they growing? All of these factors go and come into play. So we speak about this so that people are confident that they're getting into something that has an impact on carbon, a significant impact on carbon, and it will be our large projects where we'll actually be in the carbon drawdown market. The EcoTree program is not. It could be in the future, but only with the approval of investors and farmers. We recognize many of our investors invest right now because they want to zero out their carbon footprint. So this is another, it's a quote that we use at WorldTree from Paul Hawken, and it's really not, we don't invite you to consider this as the truth. We invite you to consider this to really reimagine the world that we're in. And so Paul Hawken, the visionary thinker that he is and has always been in these issues, asked the question, is global warming happening to us or for us? If it's happening to you, you're the victim and disempowered, or you can think about it happening for us. Global warming is feedback. It's actually a gift. You see, every system without feedback dies. So this is feedback for us. It invites us to reimagine. He continued on to say, addressing global warming is a pathway to transformation, creating a far better civilization than the one we live in now, far kinder, more compassionate, more inventive, cleaner, and restorative. So you could make the case that all those companies that I identified earlier, Nike and Microsoft and JetBlue and so on and so forth, Google, would they be doing what they're doing without the existential threat that climate change is for all of us? I don't know that they would. I mean, quite frankly, clean air and clean water didn't seem to be enough to push corporate America to start to make changes. Climate change seems like it might be enough. And that's what Paul Hawken is speaking to. And it's certainly one of the things that really inspires us at WorldTree as we move forward and trying to continue to create this better world, community, and economy. And finally, I want to end this before we get to Q&A. Actually, so the thing, you can go to wefunder.com/WorldTree. This is how you can participate in our current Series A offering. $3,000 funds 1 acre. It's open to non-accredited investors. If you have questions, you can also go on the WorldTree website and contact Angela, and she can answer any questions that you may have or take you through anything. And the thing that I'd say about this is that the funding 1 acre, that's going right into planting trees. That's what we're going to plant 4,500 acres of trees this year through this reggae, through raising this money, and that's where it's headed to. So finally, I wanted to say that, the farmers are the backbone of this organization. There we have Costa Rica, and while you can find many of our beginnings in Canada, it's the farms in Latin America, the United States, Canada, where you can find our soul. We love these people, we value them, we care deeply what they're doing for their families, for their communities, for us, for you, and for the planet. And it's a big part of our story, these people that we work with, that we get to partner with. And we're really proud of this offering and the unique nature of what we get to do for farmers, communities, smaller investors, as well as the planet. So with that, thank you very much. See, we condensed 4 hours into 45 minutes. Thank you very, very much.
A lot of information.
Yeah, so thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you.